Number 3, food. Food for fish is poison. That doesn't mean that they're not healthy by eating it, but it means that in a limited volume of water, feeding excessively, which means feeding routinely several times a day, dozens of times a week, will cause problems in the water, bacterial blooms. It'll cause waste that will lead to your fish becoming sick. The biggest single problem that most people have keeping tropical fish is believing that every time they come up to the glass when you walk in the room, it's because they're hungry. They're not hungry. They're happy to see you. If you sit there and observe them, they'll say hello and then they'll go on about their business. But if you feed them, they're going to keep coming back. They'll stay at that window because you're paying attention to them. Oh, they love to eat. Fish adore eating. They like nothing better to eat than to eat. Fish are hungry all the time. They have a very tiny digestive system that allows them to process food in about 2 hours. That means that the food that they evacuate when they poop it out still has substantial food value. Other fish will pick it up and eat it. In the wild, in a natural environment, there's a whole range of animals that depend on eating the waste from other fish. That waste gets eaten time and time and time again. And each time, more and more nutrition is taken from it. Imagine this. Imagine the food you put in the tank is eaten. 2 hours later, it becomes waste. Some other fish picks it up and eats it. 2 hours later, that becomes waste. Another fish picks it up and eats it. Now, if that happens 5 times before the food is finally has all of its nutritional value used up, that means that little bit of food you put in there that one fish ate has fed 5 fish. So if you feed all 5 of those at once, you're putting 5 times more food in than they need. So the food builds up. If you see food laying on the bottom, you're overfeeding. Even if it's laying on the bottom for more than 2 or 3 seconds, you're overfeeding. I like to feed my fish once or twice a week. And in point of fact, I have fish that I feed once a month. These guys in back of me, they eat about once a month. Now they'll have a big meal. I'll give them a large piece of chicken or a big goldfish or some live cut fish or shrimp that'll give them a big belly. And they'll take, because they have a larger digestive system, they'll take about a day to process it. And then I won't feed them again for another month. And they're perfectly healthy. I had a customer come in just yesterday. I'm down here in snowbird country, and I have snowbirds who are die-hard fish keepers, who just want to have a tank. They have to have a tank, even for the 6 months that they're here. So they'll come in at the end of 6 months, bring me all their fish. I'll give them a little store credit for them. They'll put saran wrap over their tank, cut off the power, cut off the lights and the filters, and let it sit. This gentleman came in He took the saran wrap off of his tank after 6 months, and there was a guppy in there. It was alive and healthy and happy. 6 months with no food of any kind. That fish was perfectly healthy and perfectly happy. I had the same thing happen once in a tank in an old fish room where Jack Dempsey jumped into a tank on the floor in the corner. I didn't see it. A year later, I saw it and remembered when it might have gotten in there. It was a year with no food. Now that doesn't mean it didn't eat. It ate very tiny things. It ate the algae that was growing in the tank. There was a sliver of light, daylight, sunlight coming into that tank for about an hour a day. It ate the microorganisms that grew big enough for it to be able to see them and pick them up. The aquarium provides lots of natural food, particularly a dirted aquarium. If you have little tiny fish, you rarely need to feed them at all. They'll find food, and they'll be perfectly happy and perfectly healthy. A hungry fish is a healthy fish. Don't try to feed them until they're not hungry anymore, because they'll get sick. If they're not hungry, they're sick, and they may very well die. Don't give your food, don't give your fish more food than they really need. And what they really need is much less than you may think. Feed very, very, very sparingly. And try to feed a high quality food. Not something with a lot of cornmeal in it. Not something with filler. Feed something that they can actually benefit from. Well, those are the three main issues that newcomers and old-timers face with virtually every aquarium. Substrate, water quality, and food. Keep them in mind as you set up and maintain your aquarium. You can have healthy, happy fish without any extra effort, without any real trouble. This is Father Fish wishing you happy fish. Bye for now.